Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Today, our short video review is going to be over multiplying fractions times whole numbers, adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. I'll do that this week as we prepare for our test on the day of Fry. Now, we've just finished covering multiplication of whole numbers and fractions. We've learned many ways to do this. I'm going to try and show as many as I can remember because, I'm an old man and I forget things. One of the ways we learned was on a number line. And, we're always going to start our number line on 0. And, I don't know how far we have to go on this. When I make a number line, I create it myself. I am allowed to count by tenths, or fifths, or eighths, or thirds, or halves, or whatever I want to choose. That is my right as an American citizen, that I can use whatever I want on my number lines. I can use decimals. I can use fractions. I can just do whole numbers. My right as an American citizen. We fought in the Civil War to have the right to put number lines how we want them. And that's the way it's going to be. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not.
All right. So, how do I decide in this instance? I look at what I'm going to have to count by. I'm going to have to count by fourths. Because that's what my fraction is. My fraction is in fourths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it. This would be 1/4, 2/4, or a half, 3/4. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is 1. 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4. 1 4/4, which is 2. And so that's how I am going to do it. Now it's going to be much more difficult if you choose not to do it that way, but as they decided in the Civil War, you have that right to number it however you want. Now, using the number line, I'm going to make like little jumps. When the horses ride and they jump over the little bars that go over there, we're going to do like that. Each jump is going to be worth 3/4. And I'm going to have to do 8 jumps of 3/4. And I always start at 0. So my first jump, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. I go 3 more fourths. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Now I'm at 1 3/4. Right? Right? That can't be right. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Oh, yeah, okay. 1 1/2, not 1 3/4. And how many times am I going to have to make these little jumps? 8 times. I'm going to have to make these jumps 8 times. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Now I'm at 3. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I jump 2 more times. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And 1/4, 2/4, 3/4.
6.
So 3/4 times 8, as long as I did everything correctly, is 6. Now from 3rd grade that multiplication is just repeated addition. So I could do 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus 3/4. And what am I going to get when I do that? 6 when I simplify it. But before I simplify it, I'd get what? 24. 24. Another way we have learned how to do it is we can do parts of a group, which is the first way we learned how to do it. Where I need 4 groups, because that's my denominator. So I'm going to have 4 groups. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. And I have to divide 8 among those 4 groups evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I look for 3 of those 4 groups. And that would give me a total of 6. So same thing I got with the number line, same thing I got with repeated addition. Another way you could see it, another way you've seen it, is they could give you, let's see, where they shade in 3/4, and they do 8 pictures of shading in 3/4, and then you would just count how many fourths were shaded in, and you'd end up with 24 fourths shaded in. Now, I'm not going to draw 8 of these, but it would be 8 of these. It might be the circles. It might be squares. However they decide to do it. But that is how, those are the ways we've learned to find multiplication of a fraction and a whole number. Fairly pretty easy. Fairly pretty easy. Let's look at addition of fractions with unlike denominators. You'll see them written like this most of the time because it's easier to write them like this or type them like this. I prefer, when I do it, is to, when I go to solve it, is to write it vertically. That helps me as far as making my equivalent fractions with the common denominator. Dallin, can I add these fractions the way they're written?
No.
No. Why not, Dallin?
Because the denominators are not the same.
The denominators are not the same. So I want to find my least common denominator. And most of you could look at this and see what your least common denominator is going to be. Dallin, what do you think it's going to be?
20.
20 is correct. If I keep going in my multiples of 5 and 4, 20 is going to be the first one that they have in common. They're also going to have 40 in common. They're also going to have 60 in common. They're also going to have 80 in common. It's easier, it's not the only way to do it, it's easier to find the smallest number they have in common, because then I'm going to end up having to simplify less if I need to simplify. If I end up with something over 80 and something over 80, when I do my adding, my answer, I might have to way simplify. If not way simplify, I'm going to have to list all the factors of 80 and the factors of whatever the numerator is. So now I need to change these to equivalent fractions. So I'm not changing the value. My answer is going to have the denominator of 20. Now I have to figure out how, Eva, what do I multiply by 5 to get 20?
4.
Good. If I multiply my denominator by 4, I must do the same thing to my numerator. And my new numerator would be what, Eva? 16. So 4/5 equals 16/20. 4/5 equals 16/20. Now I need to do the same to my second fraction. Make an equivalent fraction that has a denominator of 20. An equivalent fraction that has a denominator of 20. Amory, what do I multiply by 4 to get 20? 5. If I multiply my denominator by 5, I must also multiply my numerator by 5. And Amory, what is my new numerator? 15. Now, muy importante, always go back and look at the sign, because most of you in here have missed a problem just because you look at the wrong sign, or you didn't look at the sign. Now we have two fractions that have common denominators, so we can now add them. And Jacob, we have 16/20 plus 15/20, and we get
29 20th.
What's 15 plus 15?
30.
30. But we're doing 15 plus 16, so it would be, what's one more than 15 plus 15? 31. So I get 31 20ths. 31 20ths. Now, Juliet, what's the problem with 31 20ths? It is improper. So we're going to have to change this into something that is not improper. Juliet, how many times is 20 going to go into 31? One time. So we're going to have one whole. How many pieces are we going to have left, Juliet? 11. And what's my denominator? Good. So I have 1 and 11 20ths. I need to make sure that the fraction cannot be simplified. If it can, I need to simplify it. So we look at the factors of 11. The only factors of 11 are 1 and 11. So what kind of number is it? Prime number. Let's look at 20. The factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. So that's what kind of number? Composite. What is the greatest common factor? 1. If the greatest common factor is 1, then that fraction cannot be simplified. That fraction cannot be simplified. So 1 and 11 20ths would be our answer. We good so far? Awesome. Not difficult. Get it through your heads. Fractions are not difficult. So many times I've got students that come in, look at fractions, freak out, and think they're hard. Step by step. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you solve a fraction problem? One bite at a time. We're not trying to find the answer. Yes, you can. Now we have 7/10. Subtract 2/3. Kaylin, can I subtract those fractions as they're currently written? Why not? They do not have a common denominator. So I would need to find my common denominator. I could take 10 and 2 and just list my multiples. Or 10 and 3, sorry. 10 and 3 and list my multiples. And if I keep going, Kaylin, what's going to be my least common multiple? 30 is correct. Now, Kaylin's smart. She used her multiplication chart. Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. Yes, ma'am.
Are we going to have a multiplication chart?
Well, I'm going to let you use one, yeah. So now we need to change these to equivalent fractions so that they have a denominator of 30. And I know when I subtract, my denominator and my answer is going to be 30. So then I ask myself, Madison, what do I multiply by 10 to get 30? 3. If I multiply my denominator by 3, I must also multiply by my numerator by 3. And Madison, what is my new numerator? 7 times 3 is? Good. 21. 21. Now I have to do the same thing with my second fraction. And I'll call on Maddie Ryback. What do I multiply by 3 to get 20 or to get 30?
10.
10. If I multiply my denominator by 10, I must also multiply my numerator by 10. And Maddie, what is my new numerator?
20.
20. So 20 30ths is equal to 2/3. 21 30ths is equal to 7/10. Now, Jason, I go back and I look at my sign. It's subtraction. So, Jason, 21 30ths minus 20 30ths is? 1/30. If my denominator is 1, that tells me I am unable to simplify that fraction. Because the only factors of 1 is 1. So that would be the only thing they have in common.
It's not even wrong.
Boom. Shaka, Laka. Peace out. God bless. Love you. Do something kind today. Save the beast. Please subscribe. I want to be rich. Bring me a Dr. Pepper.